Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
It's our News Digest unit for the month of July. It is also our all-English lecture for the month of July. So you get a double treat today. No Chinese, and you get to hear a news story. Although I think this is probably something that counts as bad news. It's something that's going on in the USA specifically. It might be going on in other places, but we've got a little problem with anti-Asian hate crimes. They're on the rise during the global pandemic.
It's terrible. I've seen some of the video of this. I was just reading, actually, this morning about an elderly man. I think he was over 60, but someone stepped on his skull.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's terrible. He's still in a coma. We're going to talk about this and why it's so awful. And while we do, of course, we're going to be focusing on some of these words and phrases in English. No Chinese teacher today. So Tom and I promise to speak a little bit more slowly, more clearly, and explain phrases or words that we use that mean you might not know. Okay, let's get started. Tom is going to read through our all-English lecture.
A surge in hate crimes perpetrated against Asian Americans has occurred alongside COVID-19 in 2020 and 2021. Though advocacy groups such as Stop AAPI Hate are working diligently to raise awareness about this, the numbers of assaults and reports of harassment continue to skyrocket. There is a false belief that Asian people specifically are spreading COVID-19, which many deem responsible for the recent torrent of hate crimes. It's even been reported that former President Trump's rhetoric around the coronavirus has been partly to blame. His use of the terms Kung Flu and Wuhan virus certainly did nothing to establish a calm approach to handling the healthcare and social crises of 2020. How drastic is the rise in anti-Asian hate crimes? Statistics from the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism documented a 149% increase, with 49 hate crimes occurring across 16 major cities in 2019 and 122 in 2020. The crimes have risen most intensively in New York, Los Angeles, Boston, Seattle, and San Jose. In fact, New York police data indicated a 1,900% increase, with 20 incidents occurring in just the first half of 2020, compared to only one in all of 2019. This anti-Asian sentiment, no matter its root cause, reflects several major issues, including a lack of attention paid to it in mainstream news sources. Furthermore, elderly Asians experience more barriers in reporting crimes against them. They may lack the necessary English skills to do so, or hold cultural beliefs keeping them from speaking up, even in their native languages. While President Biden has taken some measures to address this issue, such as signing an executive order banning discriminatory anti-Asian language within the federal government, advocates are hoping for much more. From political leaders to mainstream news outlets, they're pushing for greater awareness of anti-Asian hate as well as fundamental changes.
Okay, guys, let's dive in. Anti-Asian hate crimes on the rise. Just means something is going up. The numbers are increasing, and this is happening during the global pandemic. Of course, we're talking about COVID-19. If it's a pandemic, it means it's affecting the whole world and not just one place or one country or one particular area of the world. So we're going to be talking about these anti-Asian hate crimes. People hurting Asians just because they hate them or they feel like the Asians are responsible for something, which is craziness.
Indeed. So let's dive right into this. That, again, is the headline there. We've got these anti-Asian hate crimes. Now, a surge in hate crimes perpetrated against Asian Americans has occurred alongside COVID-19 in 2020 and 2021. So here we've got the word perpetrate. Perpetrated is the past tense. If you commit a crime, you perpetrate that crime. You carry out that crime. You commit that crime. So yes, lots of crimes have been carried out against Asian Americans. That refers to a pretty large group of people there in the United States. It could include China, Korea, Japan, even Vietnam, Cambodia, and even India.
The Philippines as well. They're getting attacked.
Yep, that's right. So they're all people of Asian descent, and there have been quite a few hate crimes. There's been a surge or a sudden increase in these crimes.
You'll also see news stories often say something has skyrocketed or really risen quickly. So if it shoots up very fast, the numbers are change very quickly from low to high. They'll often use skyrocketed or they're on the rise. There's a boom in something. You'll hear that too. This has been happening alongside COVID-19 in 2020 and 2021. I'm a news hound, meaning I love to look at news stories from around the world. Hound as in dog. A dog that goes hunting has good scent capabilities, so he smells things out. I love the news, and I have noticed a lot of videos being posted of people being assaulted, by just strangers coming up to them. One of the problems is, especially in New York City or some of these big cities that have been named in the article, is that there are delivery services, especially Chinese delivery, which is really popular in America. We love American Chinese food. It probably doesn't taste very much like, Taiwanese Chinese food or even Chinese food in China, but we love it. But a lot of the delivery workers are being assaulted as they get there. And it's horrible because, as the article goes on to say, because of the culture, they don't tend to go and report the crime to the police like they could. And some of them are in such bad shape after they're assaulted or attacked, they can't. They're in the hospital.
Exactly. So, yes, this has been going on, and the crimes have been perpetrated alongside the increase in COVID-19 cases, which have happened in 2020 and 2021.
We should probably mention perpetrate is a verb, but it can also be used to talk about that person committing the crime. In that case, it would be a perpetrator, T-O-R at the end, perpetrator.
Very good. So we've got lots of perpetrators of crimes there against Asian Americans. And here in the next sentence it says, though advocacy groups such as Stop AAPI Hate are working diligently to raise awareness about this, the numbers of assaults and reports of harassment continue to skyrocket. So even though these advocacy groups are trying to stop this, the numbers are still increasing. That's basically what this sentence is trying to say us. We're talking about advocacy groups. Advocacy, that's a noun. It refers to people who advocate something. They support a certain political position or some kind of group. They might be advocates for change in the Constitution or something like that, or they advocate birthrights or whatever. And in this particular case, we've got some advocacy groups. One of them includes something called Stop AAPI, which stands for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. So, yeah, I guess there's hate crimes against all of them. Americans have this reputation as not really knowing the difference between different Asian groups there. So they're attacking people of anybody who doesn't look like they're white or black or whatever. As long as they look like they're Asian, they are fair game. So they're trying to stop these crimes against all Asian Americans and also ones of Pacific Island heritage, which could mean they're from Hawaii or American Samoa or from Guam, other places like that.
Yeah, New Zealand even. So we've got some people here that are working diligently. If you do something diligently, you're very serious about it. So you have a lot of concern for something, you care for something. If you're a diligent worker at work, I bet your boss loves you. Or if you're a diligent student, you probably work very hard to do your homework, turn in your papers on time. That's a good way to be successful in life, is to work diligently. Of course, that's the adverb form. The adjective form is diligent. If someone is very diligent, it's the same thing. They show a lot of care or concern for something, and they work hard at it. So they're diligently working to raise awareness. We use this phrase a lot, especially advocacy groups who feel like people aren't well informed. If you raise awareness, you just educate people, let them know what's going on so that they're aware of it, that they can then do something about it. Some people don't even know things are going on in the world, so they aren't able to get in there and work hard to change things. So they're raising awareness about this particular problem, and the numbers of assaults and reports of harassment continue to skyrocket. Here's that word, skyrocket. Of course, if a rocket is launched into space, it goes up very quickly. So you can imagine why we use this sometimes to describe things where the numbers really increase rapidly.
Right. You could also say the numbers are soaring. To soar means to fly high in the sky, so it's kind of the same concept here. Now, in the next paragraph, it says, there is a false belief that Asian people specifically are spreading COVID-19, which many deem responsible for the recent torrent of hate crimes. So, yes, there's a lot of people who think that Asian people specifically are spreading COVID-19. After all, people have concluded that it has come from Wuhan in China, and that's Asia. So, yeah, of course, Asians are spreading this disease. They may have had something to do with that at the beginning, but now it seems like pretty much everybody is spreading it around. But we're saying that this is a false belief because they think that only Asians are spreading it around now.
What, right. So it says here, many deem this responsible for the recent torrent of hate crimes. So if you deem something, that's what you consider to be true, to be the case. You may not have solid evidence, but that's your belief. So a torrent, anytime you see torrent, actually I think of downloading when I see the word torrent. That's illegal. Don't do that. But torrent here just means something that's coming at you very quickly and very strong. So we could have a rain torrent. Sometimes the rain comes down so fast, you feel like an umbrella is worthless, and it is in Taiwan sometimes. So there's been a lot, or a recent torrent, an increase, a lot of hate coming very quickly. So we've got more hate crimes. We'll see the statistics in a minute. Now, it's even been reported that former President Trump's rhetoric is a word we use, especially if you're in communication. I graduated in broadcasting and had to take a class on rhetoric. It's how you phrase things in a way that persuades people or gets them to believe the way you believe. That's rhetoric. It doesn't necessarily have to be true. Of course, in politics, politicians all use rhetoric. They want you to believe that they're telling you the truth. So people have started to blame, of course, President Trump, who said the virus came from China long, long ago, which has now come out to be proven to be the case, according to scientists. So, yeah, they blame that, but there are other parties that are also to blame in this. It's kind of a mess. His use of the terms Kung flu, which is kind of snappy. If you're a politician, newspapers would pick that up. They'd say, oh, that's something that will stay in your mind. Or Wuhan virus. Most viruses that appear in history have all been named from the place where they originated, like the Spanish flu. So that's a reason for Wuhan. Now we have proof that it did indeed come from China. But not the Chinese people. I think a lot of people in America can differentiate between the Chinese government and the Chinese people.
Indeed. So, right, we've got this rhetoric, which to me just basically means how you give your speeches. And yes, he came up with this term Kung Flu, which is from the Chinese term Kung Fu, which is Gong Fu. And I guess he was making a joke there or something, but some people did not like that.
Rhetoric is a way to persuade, definitely.
Oh, it sure is. So, yes, that's partly to blame. And so his use of those terms did nothing to establish a calm approach to handling the healthcare and social crisis of the year 2020. Maybe
Crises.
He could have thought of different terms or something like that. Who knows? But in any case, that brings us to the midway point in today's lesson. Let's take a break now, but please stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay, let's continue with our lesson. Again, we're talking about anti-Asian hate crimes. They're on the rise during the global pandemic. And, of course, where we left off, we were talking about some of the reasons why there have been these anti-Asian hate crimes going on. And we talked about the fact that maybe Trump's rhetoric was partly to blame. There are probably other reasons as well. And we wanted to establish a calm approach to handling the healthcare and social crises of 2020. Be careful with the word crises. That's the plural form of the word crisis. There's an economic crisis going on, and there have been several economic crises throughout history. Now let's move on to the next paragraph here. It says, how drastic is the rise in anti-Asian hate crimes? Yeah, drastic. How big a deal is it? How extreme has it been? Just how many hate crimes have there been?
Well, drastic is a word we use when we really want to emphasize that something is pretty extreme, kind of radical. So how drastic is the rise? We're going to tell you how drastic it's been. So if you make drastic changes to your apartment, you change it so much that if a friend were to come and visit, they would think, wow, it looks like a completely new place. Or maybe you get a drastic haircut. Maybe you had really long hair, ladies, and then you decided you couldn't stand the heat anymore, and you went and got a drastic haircut. And now it barely touches your neck. So that's a drastic haircut. So something that's pretty extreme or has a far-reaching effect or a very strong effect, you can use this word drastic as an adjective.
Okay, so let's try to answer this question. How drastic is the rise in anti-Asian hate crimes? Well, statistics from the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism documented a 149% increase. So if you document something, you basically report that this is the case. They've been going out and gathering statistics, getting information, and they have documented the amount of hate crimes there have been, and there has been a 149% increase, with 49 hate crimes occurring across 16 major cities in the year 2019, and then 122 of those crimes happening in the year 2020. So those are the figures, and then they compare those figures to past figures, and that's where they come up with this percentage rise.
And you see it on the news because the videos are very shocking. We've got some brave people out there taking videos of these crimes as they're taking place. Now, if you document, you can also not just write stuff down. You can use electronic equipment to record evidence that you see. And if you're a reporter, of course, you want to document what's going on out there in the world so that people can see for themselves and that you're not just making things up. So that's a pretty big increase. The crimes have risen or gone up most intensely. You know, that's how drastic they've been. They're in the big cities, New York, Los Angeles, Boston, Seattle, and then San Jose, which is in California. So these are the cities that have seen the biggest increase or biggest rise in anti-Asian hate crimes.
Okay, so let's continue. It goes on to say in the next sentence, in fact, New York police data indicated a 1900% increase with 20 incidents occurring in just the first half of 2020 compared to only one in all of 2019. Now, I can figure that out. If we had one incident in 2020 and then 20 in the next year, then that is a 1,900% increase. Boy, my mathematics skills are good enough to calculate that figure.
Oh, you're amazing. An incident is a word you'll often see in news reports where they're talking about some sort of event or occurrence, and it's often a violent event. Maybe there's an assault that took place, or maybe you had a big fight break out. That's also used commonly. Incident, but it just means an event or an occurrence. But like I said, typically you'll see it associated with negative or bad news. So that's a lot more than in 2019. So this anti-Asian sentiment or feeling, no matter its root cause, no matter where it's coming from, reflects several major issues. To reflect just means it's showing us what's going on. Now, it shows us a lack of attention paid to it in mainstream news sources. Yeah, you have to know where to look to see some of these videos. I follow a lot of different reporters on the internet, not just mainstream media. They often don't report things that are going on. And I've been horrified at some of these videos I've seen. Of course, I feel extra sensitive about it because I love Taiwan, and I'm afraid they're going to be mistaken for, some of these Asians over in America and be, hit or stabbed or kicked or whatever happens. So, yeah, it's pretty awful. Furthermore, what else, Tom?
Furthermore, elderly Asians experience more barriers in reporting crimes against them.
Yeah.
So, I've seen some of these videos as well. Elderly Asians have been attacked in some videos, and they, of course, have barriers when they want to report crimes against them. A barrier is something that blocks you. Let's find out what some of their barriers are. They may lack the necessary English skills to do so. Yes, elderly Asians living in the United States may not know English as well as the young people do, so they're not really able to communicate and to report what has happened to them. And they also may hold cultural beliefs keeping them from speaking up even in their native languages. Yes, we all know a certain amount of elderly people, no matter what their racial background is, they just don't want to, bring things up. Forget about it. It's okay. I can take it or something like that. It's too much trouble to go talk to the police.
Yep, it happens in all cultures, actually. While President Biden has taken some measures in addressing this issue, such as, and here's an example, signing an executive order banning discriminatory anti-Asian language within the federal government. Advocates are hoping for much more. We already have laws in the United States that are anti-hate, so he doesn't need to sign anything, honestly, and this is only effective within the federal government. Now, an executive is somebody, if you just see executive by itself, let me explain that first. This is someone who usually is managing at a higher level than people that are just going to the office every day from 9 to 5. Usually, they're a manager or maybe even a CEO. If you're an executive, you have some power usually to supervise other people. Or if you're in the government, you have the power to put some laws into effect, enact some laws. So this is an executive order which America has where the president can sign a new law and just, put it into effect immediately. He's signed over 100 so far, so he likes executive orders. Now, if you ban something, it means you tell people they can no longer do something.
Right, and of course, this executive order is banning discriminatory anti-Asian language within the federal government. So you can't say bad things about Asians if you're working for the federal government. Discriminatory means you basically discriminate based on race or gender or age or whatever. You basically, think you're better than they are, or you get special privileges and things like that. discrimination, of course, usually refers to the kind of discrimination that blacks suffered at the hands of white people and continue to do so. But again, this is an executive order, which I think has something to do with the executive branch of the American government. There are three branches. The executive, of course, is the president. The legislative is the Senate and the House of Representatives. And, of course, the judicial is all the courts. So, yes, this is one coming from the president within the government there. And advocates are hoping for much more. So, again, we talked about these anti-Asian discrimination awareness groups, the one AAPI, Anti-Asian and Pacific Islander Hate. We don't want that. And so these are advocacy groups, and they're hoping for more actions to stop this from happening. I think probably education and things like that may help out.
Well, I think if we could just talk our mainstream media or news outlets into showing more of these horrifying videos, we might get more people fighting for anti-Asian hate crimes to be not be tolerated anymore. So from political leaders, so you can talk to your political leaders to see if they can do something. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. Mainstream news outlets would just include, all of the big stations. Here in Taiwan, it would be, some of the TV stations that have 24-hour news, or some of the big newspapers that people pick up and buy. Those are considered mainstream news outlets. It also, nowadays, there are lots of people posting news stories because they feel like some stories aren't being covered by the mainstream media or mainstream news. If you're an outlet, there are different definitions for this word. For those of you who like to go shopping, I bet you've noticed that we like to use that word outlet. It's supposed to mean if you come here, we have cheaper prices because there might be one or two flaws in this particular pair of pants or dress, and so we're going to lower the price. The prices aren't that good, just so you know. But outlet stores have that reputation for having lower prices and still very, very good quality clothes and items like perfume and bags and stuff. What's another way?
I've been to outlet malls in the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
I don't necessarily think their prices are any cheaper.
Not anymore. They used to be.
I look at them more in terms of supply. Okay, if you go to a place like that, you got lots and lots of different choices. You don't have to go to individual stores. The outlet mall has 20, 30 stores, so you can probably find something you're interested in, but don't expect any really big bargains.
No, people have caught on. They are supposed to have flaws in them to be able to even sell or use that terminology, outlet, but I don't find them flawed. I tend to think they're pretty good quality.
Indeed. So, yeah, like I said, I just go there for the supply, especially if I want to find my size, like 2XL or 3XL or something like that. Sometimes it's hard to find my size, even in the USA. And so, yes, indeed, back to our topic here. We've got political leaders and mainstream news outlets. They're all pushing for greater awareness of anti-Asian hate as well as fundamental changes. And, of course, one thing that may change the situation is getting rid of this pandemic. Hopefully, eventually it'll go away and we'll be able to get back to business as usual, and we won't need to talk about this kind of stuff. Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. So thank you for joining us, and please join us again next time for another edition of our program. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Bye.
Bye.